it for what it's worth. But I break down the tokenomics of Safemoon into 3 categories, and I'm going to explain them here. One. The first is the term called reflections. What is a reflection? We're going to talk about that. The second component of tokenomics is supply burn. And the third component is liquidity. I know some of these words sound big or complicated. They're not. If you just listen and take the time to understand, you will see that there are several levers of the Safemoon tokenomics that can add value, and hopefully significant value, over time. So let's talk about reflections. Okay, that's terminology here. It's somewhat like a dividend, not exactly, but here's how it works. So you probably all know that every time you buy Safemoon or sell Safemoon, there is a 10% fee that is part of that transaction. So if you buy 1 million Safemoon, you are only going to get 900,000 Safemoon when that transaction finishes on PancakeSwap or one of the exchanges. Again, if you were going to sell your Safemoon, if you were selling 1 million Safemoon, you would only get 900,000 worth of whatever the price was at the time. So there's a 10% fee on the way in. There's a 10% fee on the way out. And if you happen to transfer your Safemoon to a friend, a family member, that is a transaction that will trigger a 10% fee. And this is important for things we're going to talk about a little bit. So I've heard people ask, well, why in the world would I pay a 10% fee to come in? And why would I pay a 10% fee to come out? It's important to understand why I think this is very helpful. There are a lot of cryptocurrencies that are very volatile and people day trade them. People come in based on FOMO or what they heard their friends talking about. The tokenomics of Safemoon, in my view, are designed to encourage people to hold the token and realize their value over time. This is very, very fundamental, in my view, to what Safemoon tokenomics are. I loved the tokenomics when I learned them, and I was happy and am happy the 40 times I've purchased Safemoon to pay the 10% fee on the way in, and I know I'm going to pay the 10% fee on the way out. Okay? The reason, again, is the reflections, point 1. So that 10% fee is split in half. We'll call it 5 and 5. Use our example where you bought 1 million Safemoon, but you only got 900,000 sent to your wallet. The value of that 100,000 Safemoon in our example, which represents the 10% fee, gets split in half, 5 and 5. Let's talk about the first 5%. Okay, the first 5% goes to what is called the reflections. So every single holder of Safemoon at the time that transaction takes place receives their pro rata share of that 5% or 1/2 of the 10% fee. As Safemoon Savage said earlier, if you keep refreshing your wallet, you'll see your number of Safemoon tokens going up and up and up every single minute. That's because every transaction that is triggered, you are getting your pro rata share of reflections. And that is paid to all holders based on the number of Safemoon tokens that you own. It is a pro rata concept. So this is not something that only whales or early investors get. If you bought yesterday, you still get your pro rata share compared to someone who might have purchased 70 days ago. Okay, so reflections increase your value. If the price of Safemoon was to remain the same, you would be making kind of interest on your Safemoon investment because you are getting your pro rata share of the 5% of reflections on every transaction. So that is one value lever. You are getting increased Safemoon tokens in the form of these reflections. Now, what complicates people and their understanding of reflections is my second point, supply burn. What is supply burn? Okay, so Safemoon started out with 1,000 trillion, which I think is called a quadrillion, tokens. And that is a shitload of tokens, okay? It's no longer that amount, and I'm going to explain why. A supply burn is essentially when, by some mechanism, the outstanding supply of Safemoon tokens gets reduced, okay? And the way supply burn, which is another lever that increases the value of your investment, or can, is through the burning of supply. But how does that happen with Safemoon? It's been incorrectly described over and over. So here's how it works, and it's a little bit technical, so bear with me. Safemoon has a burn wallet. Okay, you have a wallet for your Safemoon. I have a wallet for my Safemoon. And there is a wallet that is called the burn wallet. Okay, that burn wallet is technically a holder of Safemoon, just like you are, and just like I am. Okay, so when the 5% of the 10% fee gets reflected back to holders, Burn Wallet participates in getting Safemoon tokens just like you and I do. The beauty of this, in my opinion, is that the Burn Wallet is not owned by anyone. It cannot be accessed. The Safemoon tokens that go into the Burn Wallet can never be transferred or sold. They essentially go there to die. It is like a black hole, but it serves as a ledger to enable all of us to see how much of the supply is being burned. So initially, that Burn Wallet was seeded with, I think, about 277 trillion Safemoon. That's about 27.7% of the original 1 quadrillion supply. So that meant at that point in time, whenever there was a transaction, the Burn Wallet, as a holder, got a pro rata share of reflections, or at that point in time, 27.7%. But as its balance increases, just like if your or my balance or holdings of Safemoon increased, we would get a larger portion of the reflections, that 5% of the 10% fee. So at this particular point in time, 60, 70 days later, the Burn Wallet now holds 416 trillion and it's actually a little bit more than that now, or 41.6 plus % of the total supply in the world of Safemoon. That means that there is only 583 point something trillion Safemoon now in the circulating supply. And if you read the article that I wrote, I give you a simple example, but essentially, as the supply of the token decreases or is burned, if everything was equal, our respective value of Safemoon is increased because it has the same value as a collective outstanding group of tokens, but now there are less of them. So each token, again, all things being equal, will be worth more. So that is a somewhat complicated explanation of way reflections increase our wallets, and it also increases the burn wallet, which is the mechanism by which Safemoon is burned on an automated basis. This will go on forever until the developers stop it. And if they do, maybe they don't. We're going to talk about that soon. But I personally want more supply burn. The more volume we have, the more reflections we all get, the more the burn wallet gets, and therefore the more reduction in the outstanding supply and the increase in value to us. Now, again, before I leave this topic, I want to emphasize a couple of things that have been in FUD for weeks, if not 2 months. The burn wallet is not owned by anyone. It can never be accessed. Those tokens are in a black hole and they go there to die. There have been so many articles that incorrectly say that the owners of Safemoon own 40-something, 50% of Safemoon. I believe those people are looking at the burn wallet as a developer ownership wallet. It is not. It is a mechanism to affect the burn or elimination of Safemoon tokens from the supply. And for anyone who is a holder, that is a good thing. We want more supply burned, and we want to get more reflections. And the greater a volume of trading and transactions in Safemoon is good for everyone. So I just covered reflections, which include the notion of supply burn, because the supply burn, again, happens by virtue of the burn wallet as a technical holder getting its share of reflections. Now, the third and last component of tokenomics that I believe is the value driver, or at least critical to ownership of Safemoon, is liquidity. So 10% fee, 5% goes to reflections, and we just talked about that, reflections and the burn. What happens to the other 5%? That other 5% goes to feed the liquidity pool. Now, I am not smart enough to get into the complexities of the algorithms and the mathematical calculations that are the foundation for the liquidity pool, but let me just tell you briefly why it is important that half of the 10% fee goes to the liquidity pool. An exchange like PancakeSwap is what is called a decentralized exchange. In order to understand what that is, you need to understand what a centralized exchange is. So a centralized exchange is something like NASDAQ. If you want to sell a stock, you go on to NASDAQ and you set the price that you're willing to sell your stock, just like buyers go on to NASDAQ and make a bid. If you've heard the terms bid and ask, a buyer makes a bid what it's willing to buy a stock for. So a centralized exchange matches buyers and sellers. And unless buyers and sellers are willing to come to an agreement on price, and I'm putting aside how market makers work who step in to somehow bridge that gap. I don't want to make this too complicated. But essentially, a centralized exchange is going to match buyers and sellers. And if buyers and sellers don't agree on a price, you may not have the liquidity to sell or buy that you want. So the liquidity pool establishes a pool of Safemoon that is tied to BNB in the case of Pancake Swap, where if someone wants to sell and there aren't enough buyers out there to take up that volume of a sell, the liquidity pool is the resource where someone knows that, hey, there's enough money in here where if I want to sell, I could get out. And that's important because who wants to invest in anything where there's no liquidity option? Look, everyone has emergencies. Everyone may need an opportunity to sell at some point for some reason. Now, Safemoon, their liquidity pools, I believe, have over $200 million in Safemoon/BNB in them. And why is BNB in them? Well, if you heard the Safemoon Savage explain how you buy on Pancake Swap, you take your BNB tokens and you buy Safemoon. Well, when you sell, most people will exchange their Safemoon and get back BNB tokens, which you then go exchange for another crypto, or you exchange it for fiat, and that's how you get the cash back to your bank account. So that other 5% is directed to acquire BNB automatically and put it in the liquidity pool so that we all know there is a source of liquidity if we want to exit our investment and sell, and there aren't enough buyers to support that sale. And obviously, the larger the liquidity pool becomes, the more comfort investors have that no one large particular sale is going to hurt the price of Safemoon. So we want that liquidity pool to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And if you've read some of the things out there, theoretically, there can become a point in time where the liquidity pool is actually larger than the aggregate market capitalization of all of the Safemoon that is in circulation. And that is such a mind-blowing, complicated economic scenario. But let me assure you this, if that ever happened, we have reached the utopia of an investment. That means every single person in Safemoon could sell their tokens on one day, and there would still be excess funds in the liquidity pool beyond those sales. So bottom line, liquidity pool, good. We want to fund it. 5% of the 10% goes to add to the liquidity pool, and that is good for everyone. So I know that that was a long-winded explanation of tokenomics. I hope it was helpful. If you didn't understand it, hopefully you do now. But those are the three levers that make an investment, again, in my view, in Safemoon, attractive. You get the reflections, the supply is being burned. Both of those things can increase value all things being equal. And then the liquidity pool, again, makes it easier for people to exit and to buy and not impact the price as much. So we want that liquidity pool being bigger. Now, the next half of my article is kind of like, where do we go